the way Deion Sanders fucking rallied me up. I hear little quotes to him. I'm watching him, bro. Where was he when I was 17? Deion's for the youth.
How I would say like Pat McAfee's kind of become almost like the rock star of like the sports media industry in that way, and like we almost be taking that like maybe not the Deion role, but like a different role in like media. I feel like Deion Sanders has become like the rock star of coaching. Like he's getting it done. It's not just like flair. It's actually him like backing up his talk and showing a really disciplined team.
So I like that perspective that you gave of it. Here's mine. I think that Deion is one of the most intelligent coaches ever.
Let's do this.
1 week has passed. A lot has happened. Achilles have been torn. Tears have been shed in this particular house. I'm sure Charlie's as well. And I'm sure that's why Zach can't join us today. But nonetheless, we have a lot of other football to bring you. The show goes on. As you can see here, we are back in the nice green colors. I'm Matt.
I'm Charlie.
And I'm Thev, man.
And we're the Senior Council Roundtable Football Podcast. Now,
don't forget Zach, bro. You can't forget my dog Zach.
Yeah, no, Zach could not be with us here today.
He got sacked by Micah Parsons just like Zach Wilson did.
Hey, I don't think we're allowed to say that. There might be allegations still about that, man. So, nah.
Those 4 snaps are great.
Those 4 snaps are like a movie to me. And then, just like any typical Jets fashion, it crashes down to us because for some reason the football gods hate us all. They hate us.
Bro, it might be Joe. Joe Namath may need to never show up to any Jets function for you guys to start.
Fireman Ed is going to retire again.
Joe Namath sold his soul to the devil, allegedly. He said to the devil, the Jets can never win again unless I'm alive. This is alleged. So Joe Namath, if you see this, don't bring your lawyers after me.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, 100%.
We learned the importance of that since the Pat McAfee, Brett Favre scandal. But we've got a lot of topics to cover today. I'm sure we're going to make it back to the Jets. First and foremost, we're actually going to take a dip out of the NFL world down to the NCAA world, where there seems to be a new superstar, not necessarily taking the field, but taking the headlines in the coaching ranks. Deion Sanders, once again proving himself and the Colorado team possibly more successful than anyone could have possibly imagined. I think that Deion Sanders has become the rock star of the coaching world, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on Colorado's double overtime win against Colorado State.
Well, I'm very passionate about this, man. So when you have a coach that's passionate about the game, that has a track record of being great, like, it's weird to say that, like, we're watching one of the greats go back and actually be good at coaching. What other that good that went back and coached or went back and became an owner and went back to the game in any shape or form was actually good at it? Like, we've seen, like, mid-tier players be mid at coaching. We've seen great players go back and be awful at coaching. It's a whole different
just Saturday alone.
It's a different side of the ball game from playing and coaching. So the fact that he's able to mold these young men into winning, and then the fact that he's barely doing recruiting, like you said, if you think you're good enough, hit him up. His DMs are open. Looked at it. I tried to DM him. Yo, if there's a way for me to go on that team, I'm ready to crash out about it. I'm telling you, yo, if you're ever in like a little like slump, go look up Deion Sanders motivation on YouTube. That man will have you ready to run through a wall for him. Yo, when they were playing Nebraska, he said, "I don't know about you guys, but I don't let people come to my house and whoop me." I sat there and I was like, "Wait, yeah, they're not gonna whoop me at home, and I'm not even on the team." Like, come on, man. There's something about him, and behind the scenes, I know he's putting those boys through heck, and he's the way he moved the ball week 1 against TCU, he was rush offense. He uses about 12 to 13 man personnel. So in college, that's insane. And we could factor the fact that they practice in Denver every day. So when they go out to Texas or they go out to where else do they play? Like Colorado State was the one that kept up with them. But when they go out to Texas or they go out to Nebraska, or Nebraska comes to them, or when they play against the South Carolinas, they're going to be in better shape than these boys that are practicing in California or in Texas for their spring ball
For
compared to
sure.
them staying on their home turf.
I think we can
for
see it
spring
right
ball.
away
So-
with Travis Hunter already logging more than 100 snaps in a game. Of course, he already came out due to injury on that dirty hit during the Colorado State game. Things happen. I wish him the fullest recovery. But, between Deion Sanders' sons, Shiloh and Shadur Sanders, I think that there's no one that can possibly doubt. I know that we're only 3 weeks in. I know that losses are to come down the line. Maybe. Maybe we don't know. If somebody's going to go undefeated throughout their entire time as a head coach of a team, I think it's going to be Deion Sanders. And I was just really impressed. This is one of the first times I really sat down and expressly watched a college game in a while.
I didn't really watch the game. Like I said, I usually pay attention to the headlines of college football. But what I really saw from Twitter and just checking the box score is that this offense is amazing. Shadur Sanders is probably one of the better quarterbacks in the nation, and if he declares for the NFL draft, he'll be at least a QB 3 to 4 range. Shout out Deion Sanders for being 3-0.
Yeah, shout out Deion.
Yeah, that's huge.
And I want to bring us now back to the NFL world. There's one other topic to cover before we get into the games, and that's the fact that we might see yet another comeback from the GOAT, Tom Brady. Not official yet in his purchase of the minority stake of the Las Vegas Raiders. Could that be because he's planning yet another comeback? Does he see that slot open in New York?
God, no.
Well,
Oh, no way. No way. As a Jet fan myself, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because he already filled the letter to the NFLPA saying that he's done. I think there's reports that he came out and said he's not interested in playing.
Some people are saying Baker Mayfield could get it done in Tampa Bay, but Tom Brady could not. You think that could possibly pull him out? Don't look into those reports, by the way. I'm not. They disappeared.
Baker Mayfield, I love Baker. Let's go Oklahoma. Let's go Sooners. But Baker, they still have Evans and Godwin. There'll still be a decent team with those two wide receivers at the helm.
That's a good place to possibly start for our Sunday games then. Baker Mayfield's still looking good. Buccaneers hold it out against the Bears. Justin Fields, semi-unspectacular, but the big plays are coming back. Had an amazing throw to Chase Claypool for the touchdown, but 2 ugly interceptions that put that game away at the end.
Well, I would like to start here and say that I have Justin Fields on my fantasy team. It hasn't been great so far. The turnovers have been a little outrageous for this team, especially when you have good weapons on the outside with Claypool and Elijah Moore. You got Mooney in the slot. You got two solid starting running backs in Roschon Johnson and Khalil Herbert, and you still can't get it done. I am a little concerned for Justin Fields. Stay in Chicago. I feel like if he doesn't pan out next season, he could definitely be a quarterback somewhere else. I think that the Bears could look at drafting a quarterback going into the next offseason.
That's a good point, your last point there. I'm big on giving quarterbacks leeway. I'm big on letting players develop. We see such quick turnarounds on top picks and quarterbacks that we forget that they get drafted as kids. They come in at 19, 20 years old, 21 years old. Some of them can't even drink. And we expect them to lead an organization to something that 30-year-old men can't do. You like to see slow progression or any type of progression in some type of quarterbacks. And it seems like Chicago's ready for the long haul in that DJ Moore trade and beefing up that online that can't stay healthy. Must be a Chicago curse. But they're investing. It's not like that front office isn't all right, you're the quarterback of our future, get it done. No, they're investing in him. And potentially even, they had the number 1 pick. They could have went any quarterback they wanted. They traded back. And still, they got something to help him in that trade back. They got him a number 1 receiver. Like you said, Chase, his number 1 receiver last year, catching a touchdown for him this year, bringing up those double teams, getting him those one-on-one stacks. And it just seems very, very hard to be on his side now when the organization's on his side. They gave him a offensive coordinator that fits his play style and that really could help develop him. And I don't know. I feel like everything's on his side. It's only week 2, granted. We might have a foot in our mouth by week 7. Might be MVP candidate by then.
That's what I'm going to bring up to you. Well, you guys, in saying that this season is still just getting underway. We only have 2 games under our belt, and I agree to your sentiment that they have successfully surrounded Justin Fields with weapons that look much better than the Chicago Bears offense that put out the league worst record last year. I think that between DJ Moore, who had over 100 catches, 100 yards on, I think, 5 or 6 catches, look good. It looks like the rapport is growing there. Justin Fields, once again, fantastic throw to Chase Claypool, who is potentially going to be a healthy scratch. So that's actually a really good storyline for the Bears. I feel like this is a team that will potentially take some games that they won't be taking in September come wintertime. I think that we'll see Justin Fields put it together, and we will see Roschon Johnson break out of the backfield. I think Khalil Herbert, even if Roschon Johnson is fantastic, like Charlie, I know, lauds him as one of the steals of the draft. I think those two possibly make one of the best 1-2 punches in the NFL. I think DJ Moore is there. Darnell Mooney was great last year. This team has too much to not get it done. And if they don't, the eyes are going to be on Fields, because it's going to be a matter of if Fields develops as a passer or not this year. I feel like
the one thing I want to point out is that now we're talking about the Bears. We were talking about Justin Fields. Let's talk about Baker Mayfield. Dude, the guy is 2-0. I'm very surprised he's been playing very well compared to what the 3 teams he was on last year.
Over 300 yards, no interceptions this past game. I think he did his job. Mike Evans, I actually wrote down on my notes, Evans still a dog. He's still going to get 1,000 yards. He's going to get a contract with Tampa Bay. It's going to look a lot prettier than it would have if they didn't get it done before the season. I think Mike Evans is still going to get it done. I think Chris Godwin's there. I think Rachaad White out of the backfield looks good. This team is still built to be a playoff contender if Baker can take them there. I think there are a lot of teams that, despite having quarterback changes over this past season, are on a really good track. And I want to turn our focus now to another game because of that. A game where we see 2 quarterbacks still just getting started and getting their feet wet in their young careers. And that would be Jordan Love and Desmond Ridder in Packers-Falcons. I thought that was one of the best games of the week. What about you guys?
Off cam, me and Charlie were talking about it. Besides that Giants comeback, that was probably the best game this week. So here's some notes I have on the very first play of the game. Besides the flag, the defensive pass interference, a trick play. Jordan Love flung it down the field. Great accuracy. DB held back his receiver. Clear pass interference. If not, first play touchdown. Looked like a Madden play. Was going to throw it 75. Was going to throw it for about 45 yards in the air and then rush for the rest of the 75. But Jordan Love showing great accuracy with the deep ball. The stats may not show it. He was 100. He threw for 151 yards, 3 TDs, no INTs on 14 for 25 throwing. Not pretty stats, but that's a lot of promise to show for a first-year starter. A lot of those passes were, credit to Jair Alexander and that defense. But on top of that, he played pretty well to me. The first 2 weeks of his young career, he's played pretty well. He's showing great promise. If Jaden Reed, 4 catches, 37 yards, 2 TDs on 4 targets. He also had the ball.
Was in my DFS lineup. Didn't win money, but I still
11.
feel proud of that one.
He had targets to 11 different receivers, and that's huge because that means that they have a round table of receivers that he's comfortable with. Not all of them had catches, but
probably not staring him down as much either. I think that's a really good sign. That shows that he's not over-relying on any of his targets. Granted, Christian Watson probably would be his favorite target, and he's out. He's been dealing with an injury to Aaron Jones this week. And I think ultimately the lack of Aaron Jones played a big part as to why this team lost. Because we saw on the other side of the field, Bijan Robinson, over 170 yards from scrimmage, already taking big impact plays for the Falcons. Making big impact plays for the Falcons.
I love
19 carries for 124 yards. Insane. 6.5 yards. I'm sorry for cutting you out, but those stats are...
Hey, you're good. You're good.
6.5 yards per carry. We can't overlook what Drake London did. Not pretty stats, but 6 catches on 7 targets, 67 yards and a TD. Jair Alexander, the main guy covering him. That's huge. Huge.
And by the way, whenever Zach gets back on the podcast, I would like an apology to us Desmond Ritter fans, because Desmond Ritter balled out. I think he did against a good Packers defense, a good Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith on the edge, and you also have Rasul Douglas, Eric Sosa, and Jair Alexander in the secondary. This offense played very well. The run game was there. Ritter didn't really have to do much in that game. He just had to take the easy throws, and that's what he did.
I will offer that as a counterpoint, though, that I'm not necessarily ready to become a Desmond Ritter apologist. Not saying I was on the hate train like Zach was, but I saw some bad throws. I saw Desmond Ritter try to get one off into the red zone. It was almost intercepted. It wasn't a great throw. He had a throw that was intercepted in the first half. Also didn't look too great. But to your point, he did look much better as the game went on.
He looked way better compared to his week 1 performance.
He had a couple nice throws there.
Early. He threw a pick early. He went 19 for 32 passing, 237 yards in the TD. He did pretty good. Still can't get a ball to Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. As the fantasy owner of Kyle Pitts, I'm feeling that right now. Well, not this week. I put up over 200 this week in our teams. There are a few contributors, Michael Parsons, Mike Evans, who we already got to, and another one who put up over 20 for me in fantasy. Tank Dell, the rookie. We saw CJ Stroud throw it, sling it. Another young quarterback getting it to different receivers. We saw Robert Woods go over 70 yards. We saw Tank Dell, previously mentioned, go over 70 yards. Nico Collins over 100 yards receiving. We saw CJ Stroud sling it in an otherwise pretty hopeless-looking loss for the Texans. Granted, I think they were without Laramie Tunsil. I didn't see much going on from the run game. CJ Stroud still had his moments where he looked like a rookie, a little panicked, but for his second game in the pros to look like that, even against a Colts defense that doesn't quite have the secondary it had last year with Stephon Gilmore leading the way and now in Dallas, I'm amazed. I was really impressed with the showing.
I absolutely agree with that, because I think this run defense really stopped Damian. This run defense really stopped Damian Pierce. Like DeForest Buckner, Glover Stewart, and that line, Damian Pierce had no chance. And I think they're going to start to abandon the run, abandon Damian Pierce, because he's just been very inefficient as a runner. He only got over 3 yards to carry. It's kind of like you're going to start losing your job to maybe guys like Devin Singletary, the former Buffalo Bill. He's still got a good amount of work in this game as well.
Yeah, I think that's significant pressure. Tav, any notes?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still standing on what I said last week. We're going to see spurts like this from CJ Stroud. He's a great quarterback. There's nothing against him at all. When I mean this pod, we're rarely going to talk extremely downly on players because they have a bad performance, and we're going to give them flowers when it's due, but he is a great player. I think we can all agree he's a great player. But the fact that I just don't like the fact that the Texans are throwing him out there. Look at the hole they're throwing him. They're forcing him to play phenomenal for him to win games. He had a great game as a rookie.
I think that's a good problem to have. I understand that he's really being thrown out to the fire there, maybe even a David Carr situation there for the Texans. But I think that at least they weren't the only ones in that game to do that. Like we were talking about last week, we see Anthony Richardson get hurt, and there he is, already out with a concussion after his second rushing touchdown of the game, was taking it over. Once again, looked like possibly the best of the 3 rookie quarterbacks, even with CJ Stroud looking sharp. and we see him get hurt again. How many times does this have to happen before we see the innovative Stan Steichen offense still looking sharp, still look good with Gardner Minshew? When are we going to see them take an account for Anthony Richardson's health?
NFLPA needs to. NFLPA needs to investigate the Colts. They need to investigate the Colts and fine everyone. There's no way we're about to watch another generational quarterback go down. We watched Andrew Luck go down. They killed Matt Ryan's career.
RG3, the one that was picked after Andrew Luck, also went down. I feel like there are so many players that we've lost so many good years to because of these injuries. You got to protect them.
They need to investigate the Colts. I feel like the Colts are like the main subject of way too many of these quarterbacks. Just losing everything. I don't understand it.
That's a good point.
Do had Peyton in the past.
I think this message can be shared to these two franchises because we saw it with the Texans and David Carr, and now you're making the point with C.J. Stroud, and then once again with Andrew Luck, and now we're seeing it with the Colts and Anthony Richardson. I feel like that's an organizational mess up on their part.
I don't know what it is. They're watching other quarterbacks succeed. You can't even compare it to the Josh Allen situation. Because what did they do? They traded for us Stephon Diggs. They're like, oh, you're pretty good. Let's go get you a number one threat. Word. Stephon Diggs is pretty disgruntled. Let's go trade for him and pay him. Because he's good and you're good. You have a young quarterback. All right, granted, I'm not saying they're the next Josh Allen or the next whatever. But you have a young quarterback. Your team's you obviously aren't the best team. You naturally were a top pick. So why are you throwing him out there with the same team that got you that top pick? Just a different coach.
It seems like we lost Charlie there for a little bit. I'm sure we'll see him pop his head back in. But in the meantime, I do want to compliment your point that we were making with the Colts Texans game. Right in that division, we see the Jacksonville Jaguars surrounding Trevor Lawrence with the necessary help. We see him being surrounded by Calvin Ridley, who's there. And I know he had a tough game. It was Christian Kirk and not Calvin Ridley, whose number was being called over and over in this last game against the Chiefs. But obviously the Jaguars are in a much better direction because we're seeing them surround their star quarterback with talent. And that makes all the difference. And with that, I would like to get into Chiefs-Jaguars. Wasn't pretty on the scoreline, but still very competitive and truly one where both teams showed up to play. I know the offense didn't look pretty all that there by the Jaguars, but I was impressed that the Jaguars still looked a part of a competitive contending team.
Yeah, the Jaguars look like a playoff team, and yet again we're looking at the Chiefs get caught off guard, in my opinion. A lot of teams are really taking advantage of the Chiefs' lackluster playmakers. Yeah, we're seeing a few spurts because they have a great quarterback, arguably one of the best, in my opinion, the best in the league right now. But we're seeing a lack of that star power, even with Kelsey back and everything. We're still seeing it. But granted, like you said, they're doing a really good job with their young quarterback, and he's just getting better and better every game.
I think so too. What is it? That brings him to 8-3 in his last 11 now, or something like that. But his record over his past 11-12 games has been fantastic. I think the Jaguars have shown that they're putting a great core around him. But I want to shift the focus over to the Chiefs' defense. Chris Jones comes back, does not miss a beat. He gets in the backfield over and over again, like Micah Parsons, how we saw him dominating that Jets offensive line. We saw Chris Jones doing the same with this Jacksonville offensive line that isn't quite 100%. Brandon Scherff started with an ankle injury. Despite him being in the game, I'm sure that was hindering him. Cam Robinson still suspended. And I think we saw those losses add up for the Jaguars. And on top of that, the Chiefs' defense is just legit. I feel like they are going to end up having to carry this team because of the fact that, what you said, this offense doesn't look fully back yet either. Like, they were having some issues with the Jaguars on the other side of things too. Travis Kelce did get into the end zone. Things were looking a little more smooth in the second half. But this team is currently Mahomes, Kelce, Mahomes again, and sometimes Pacheco on offense. They can't keep being that.
Yeah, you can't win football games like that. I see them really investing probably in one of those older running backs in a few weeks. Charlie's back.
So,
I see them
had some
investing.
technical difficulties. But what game are we talking about? We're talking
We're
about Chiefs Jaguars.
we're just wrapping up our thoughts on Chiefs Jaguars. Do you have any thoughts? We were saying that Chris Jones looked really good, didn't miss a beat, and that the Chiefs offense might not be fully back even with Travis Kelce's return.
Yeah, this offense looked very stagnant. The Chiefs. It was I gotta say the defense for the Jaguars really came out and really put pressure on Mahomes. Like they made the defense look. This defense made the Chiefs kind of look a little human in a ways. Like even though Travis Kelce still went in there, had a solid job, did score a touchdown. Chris Jones also went there on the defense, returned on his debut from his holdout. He looked very well. He had I think he had about 2 tackles, 1 TFL, and 1.5 sacks. He went in there and dominated. He never missed any time. And I also want to say shout out to Sky Moore, huge bounce back this week, led the team in receiving, and also had a touchdown for the Chiefs.
There we go. It's nice to see somebody contributing to that Chiefs receiving core. Kadarius Toney still had some jitters. I saw him kind of lose a ball, I wasn't sure if it was a drop or a fumble, but he had an awkward moment with the ball where it looked like he almost got the Chiefs offense into trouble before the ref stepped in. And I was going to even say that this conference runs between these two teams until further notice. I know that the Bills had a really good game, which we'll pivot to now. I think that there are a lot of questions about this Bills team, but they look back. I think that this Raiders team, I thought could play spoiler going into Buffalo yesterday, and Buffalo didn't entertain that thought for 1 minute. It made Jimmy look uncomfortable all the time. Yeah, he got some throws off to Devontae Adams, but I wanted to know what you guys saw in that game.
I guess I'll start first. I want to shout out James Cook. Went in there, got over 100 yards. A lot of people said, especially on Twitter, TikTok, social media, that James Cook couldn't carry a ball more than 15 carries. I think he almost had 15 carries for almost over 100 yards. And he was very efficient. Yeah, he didn't score a touchdown, but when you have Josh Allen as your quarterback, you can't really get that goal line work. And you also have Damian Harris, Latavius Murray in the backfield stealing those goal line carries. But James Cook really came out there, played dominant. Josh Allen, typical Josh Allen bounce back game. The defense for the Bills played great. Devontae Adams played well, even though he left the game with a concussion. Jimmy G looked kind of iffy out there, especially because he was hurt during the week. I think it was an ankle injury. But the Bills just came out there, showed why they're one of the better teams in the league, and they showed it against the Raiders. Now they're 1-1. Still think third place in the division, though. Jets are still second.
For sure. I think Josh Allen is kind of... Oh, I'm sorry, Tev, you first.
Yeah, like you were saying, the Bills didn't entertain at all. Like the fact that, maybe you could beat us. Nah, they just went in there, did their job, didn't play down to anyone.
Didn't play with their food.
But, didn't play with their food at all. Everything was in front of them, and they just took it all. But we're going to disagree on the fact that you think they're the third in that division. I think that one's Staples. I think they might have that division on lock. They're not even, I feel like, in full. I feel like they're one of the only teams that they're not 100% at full sync yet. There's no team 100% at full sync, but they're the closest to it. They're bringing back a lot of starters. They're bringing back a lot of key players. Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen look like they haven't missed a beat from last year. That combo had a great year. I feel like this team could be very, very dark, if not the odds favorite, a dark horse for the Super Bowl. Because I feel like they can come out that tough AFC, super tough AFC.
Yeah, I feel like
I agree with you with that. But I was just saying they're currently second in the division as of today.
Yeah.
And a week 2. So
I think that it's going to be very difficult to discount the Bills, especially with Josh Allen looking like he did on Sunday. Josh Allen, if he plays like that, I understand he's still putting his body on the line, and he's another one that I'm looking at, right? Just like with Anthony Richardson, but this one's a little more on him because it's like you can see it in his eyes. He's not going to slide. He just doesn't have that instinct in him. But I feel like with that, if he stays healthy, he's still the second best quarterback in the AFC behind Mahomes. Maybe Trevor Lawrence can overtake him. Maybe Herbert can. maybe Tua, but like for now, until somebody steps up, he is right behind Mahomes as somebody who can lead a team to a Super Bowl. And there's a certain quarterback that has led his team to a Super Bowl, but I'm starting to have some concerns whether he's going to be willing to do it again now that he's fat, rich, and happy, and that is Joe Burrow. He did not come to play. I know things look better once again for the Bengals as the second half ramped up against the Ravens, but this Ravens defense was missing some key pieces. They were missing Marcus Williams in that safety slot in the secondary, as well in the secondary. They were missing Marlon Humphrey. And yet we saw them take care of this Bengals offense. Looked very, very similar to the pathetic showing we saw in week 1 against the Browns. And it took them a while to come to life for T. Higgins to have 8 catches, 89 yards, and 2 touchdowns, mainly in the second half, to really see that this Bengals team is there. At least, they weren't as despondent. They stayed competitive, and they looked like an actual competitive team. I'm not ready to disqualify them from the playoffs, but, they're looking a lot less hungry this year.
All right, I guess I'll start. So, I really put the blame on Zach Taylor and his coaching staff. I feel like they're very conservative when it comes to with their play calling, because they like to take those dink and dunk sometimes. You got to take the easy throws, but sometimes you have to go take a shot down the field, especially in the first half, because you don't want to be crawling back playing catch up in the second half against a team like Lamar Jackson, who's one of the best mobile quarterbacks in the league.
I want to bring us to the last 2 1 o'clock games that we haven't necessarily addressed, but 2 overtime games that were possibly, besides the Packers-Falcons games, 2 of the best of the week. We saw the Lions versus the Seahawks. We saw the Seahawks take this one in overtime with the Tyler Lockett touchdown late. Geno Smith bouncing back once again, having a comeback player of the year type performance after not looking too good against that Rams defense in week 1. And Jared Goff, interception streak broken, but I think he still looks sharp. He had some great touchdown throws. What was it? 2 went to Josh Reynolds, 1 went to Cleve Raymond, if I remember correctly. And that game was extremely competitive. That did look like a game between 2 NFC contenders. I was wondering if you guys agreed there.
Yeah, I'm having some technical difficulties right now.
Yeah, man. We'll call it it is what it is. We'll make do with what we got. I know we only have 20 minutes more left, so pretty much we'll just do I was explaining to Ted, we'll do a quick hit on Chargers Titans. So with everything that we saw in Seattle Detroit, I think we saw a similar level of competition between the Chargers and the Titans. I was really impressed with the game that the Titans played after coming out really flat against the New Orleans Saints. They played up to the Titans, and I wrote in my notes that it's time to stop doubting Mike Vrabel. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. He won Coach of the Year for a reason. Derrick Henry is not washed. I think he's still moving very well out there. Not only is DeAndre Hopkins providing in the receiving corps, Treylon Burks, Westbrook Ikene is also in the end zone this week. I was really impressed by the game that the Titans played. And they were able to take that one despite Herbert, once again, not having a bad game in this offense. I know the ball was not moving too well in the run game. Any thoughts on Vrabel, on the Titans, on Eckler being out? There's a lot of things that could happen in this game. Keenan Allen had a great game.
I just want to say that I got bailed out because I'm going against Austin Eckler. I was supposed to go against Eckler this week. He was ruled out. I got very lucky that week. But I have one question for the Chargers. How is Brandon Staley still a goddamn head coach? It's unbelievable.
Music to my ears, Charlie.
You got hired to go to the Chargers to be this defensive mastermind, but yet your defense is still one of the worst in the league. You can't stop Brian Tannehill. Come on. This is ridiculous. This Titans offense has no line. They have great running game. Shout out Derrick Henry. Shout out Tajay Spears, another sleeper guy I like to talk about. He's getting a lot of snaps. He got snapped over Derrick Henry in week 1.
Sleeper sponsor us.
Keenan Allen went there, dominated. Treylon Burks played solid. He had 1 big catch for 70 yards. Really opened up against that Chargers defense. And I also want to say is that Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, they're both great. Both had over 200 yards combined. Keenan Allen had 2 touchdowns on the day too as well. Keenan Allen was unstoppable.
One of those real nice there too.
You can't run on this Titans team, but you could definitely pass on this team. But the better team prevailed. Shout out to Titans. Shout out Mark Vrabel. So I was the grateful one to cover Rams 49ers today. Yesterday, Brock Purdy played very well, made very good throws in the pocket. Even especially on the right side, there was a lot of pressure coming off the right side. 49ers, I am concerned about that. I don't because they lost Mike McGlinchey last year. The right tackle spot still looks very shaky for the 49ers, but McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel ran all over this defense with a combined about 150 scrimmage yards between those two. Deebo Samuel was still great through the air, also had 6 catches for 63 yards. But for the Rams offense, Matt Stafford looked pretty well. Even though he has threw 2 picks, one of them wasn't his fault. It was tipped in the air, and one of them was just it was right to the defender. But yeah, he played pretty well. Puka Nacua, what a shocker. Shocker with this team, 15 catches for like 147 yards. With him and Cooper Kupp, when he comes back, this team could be a sleeper wild card team. Like the offense looks great. Run game looked great with Kyron Williams scoring like 2 touchdowns in this game. Had about like almost 100 scrimmage yards. McVay's play calling is still good. Shanahan's play calling still good. But the better team got the win. And shout out to the 49ers.
Shout out to Cam Akers, my 6th round pick in our fantasy league this year. Healthy scratch in week 2. I thought you put that behind you, and it's clear that you have not. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, genuinely. It could be the Rams organization's fault for all I know. But I was very disappointed to see that. Kyron Williams is the guy in the backfield. I even drafted Zach Evans, the Rams backup, rookie running back, and he has not exactly progressed to take the field either. And I was just really, really impressed with not only the Rams, Niners, not only we'll get to in a bit, the Giants-Cardinals game that we had in this window. I was really impressed with the Commanders-Denver game. This team, the Washington Commanders, might not be as hopeless of a thrown-together team as Thev said last week. I saw a Patrick offensive line that needs to get better. Had Sam Howell crying for some help. He's been playing like a consummate professional. Hints of Sam Darnold with that number 14. And this, fully complimentary because Sam Darnold was a pro's pro for us on the Jets. I was really impressed with Sam Howell's poise. He led that team. He was the leader. They rallied around him. Scary Terry had a fantastic touchdown catch. Great throw. Jahan Dotson was dialed in with his new quarterback early. Brian Robinson has, I think possibly due to this struggling offensive line, maintained a really low yards per carry rate. And he kind of shattered that. He got open. He moved. He was a part of the win. And I really understand that the reasoning why this team has favored him now over Antonio Gibson, who has been prone to fumbles. Though even Antonio Gibson has a really good game. He had a good few carries. He had a nice catch where he went for, I want to say, good more or less 20 yards. And this team was fantastic. Obviously, Denver started off with 21-3. I thought that would hold. I thought that they were going to be the better team going in, despite Washington being 4-1-1 in road games heading into this, now 5-1-1. But Russ did not look the part as the game went on. And I think some of that could be contributed to the team that Mike McGlinchey, the guy that Charlie was just talking about a minute ago, contributed to the Broncos. I think that this offensive line, Garrett Bowles went out there with some sort of brace on his elbow. This offensive line was not ready to handle it. This Washington pass rush, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Chase Young back with his first sack in, 700 plays, 700 days. It's been a long time since Chase Young has gotten a sack, and he did. He contributed to this win just like the rest of this team, and a big shout out because that wasn't easy to wrestle back from. Russ did look good early. Russ did have that Hail Mary. Brandon Johnson, Chad Ochocinco's cousin, 2 touchdowns today. I drafted him as a sleeper on my fantasy team because of the fact of I can't let Ochocinco's relative go. There's no way this guy isn't going to come up and be like, oh, this guy's going to perform and get a few scores in a week. Maybe I wasn't projecting that, but it was really cool to see. Obviously, the Broncos could have came back, got the 2-point conversion at the end. Things happened there. They didn't get it done. So I was just all around impressed with this game in total. I thought it was a really fun game to watch.
Like you said, the Commanders, I kind of got shut up by the Commanders, but Yeah, they look good. They look decent. Riverboat Ron may still get fired, but yeah, they look pretty good. Can't go bad with that, man.
And Tev, I believe you were the
Um,
one tasked with covering this Arizona Giants miracle that happened. Biggest
yeah,
comeback
that same.
in 50 years for the Giants since the 40s.
So I got to watch what we didn't really get to talk about is I got to watch 6 quarters of the Giants just absolutely sucking offensively and defensively. It's not like, oh, they played pretty good on defense. Oh, they're pretty competitive on offense. No, I watched them suck on offense and defense for 6 quarters straight. So when I tell you I was groggy-eyed and all football burnt out by the time they started to really catch fire, Danny Jones threw for over 300 yards. Shocked me. Yeah, it sucks that Saquon got banged up a little bit, but I feel like he's going to be back soon. I don't think the full injury report came out yet, unless I'm mistaken. Jalen Hyatt stepping up. This is why we can't take reports. Huge catches in those comebacks. This is why you don't take what's his faces rookies in those OTAs and those rookie training camps. Like hearing reports of them struggling, you take that with a grain of salt. You gotta remember they just came from a full year of football. They don't get a break from the draft onto their senior season. They go straight into the rookie OTAs and straight into training camp. Probably get a few week break, but they're also training for the draft. But
it matters what you put on the field. Phenomenal. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's really all that matters. But yeah, he went out there, filled a big role, and the Giants. If the Giants could play like they played from the end of the third quarter to the end of that game, they could be a pretty competitive team. Unfortunately, we didn't see that for 6 quarters. So in my eyes, I'm just going to say that they just clicked. They clicked at the right time. If they could click like that for the rest of the season, they could win a lot of football games. But unfortunately, I don't see that happening.
Right. It might be another tough season for the New York football teams. I think that this is a perfect time to also clue into the Jets-Dallas game because while the Giants looked really good, they did it against the Cardinals team. Literally projected to be the number 1 pick. I actually wrote down in my notes before we do fully move on, was this the race for Caleb Williams? That's how ugly it looked early on. It looked like the Giants might have been the leader for that. I think that Danny Jones would have played 1 year of that $140 million deal. Whatever he got, I might have not given the right numbers there. But what we saw out of the Jets-Dallas game might make the Giants feel a little better. They got the win, even if it wasn't against a very competitive team. Well, the Jets lose to a very, very, very competitive, very, very, very talented team. I think that despite being one of the biggest Zach Wilson haters, I'm willing to give him a little bit of a mulligan because this Dallas defense is legit. This offensive line on the Jets, especially like Dwayne Brown starting at left tackle, I think his best years have been clearly behind him, and he was a serviceable tackle for us last year. This year, I think it's kind of a travesty that he's out there right now. He did not look good. I understand this Dallas defense is going to do this to a lot of other teams and a lot of other offensive lines, but I was really, really nervous for how this offensive line is going to hold up. For the running backs, like Breece Hall coming off the torn ACL, and I'm even worried about Zach Wilson. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is out of the line of fire because he's already hurt, but Zach Wilson really didn't have a chance when he was running for his life.
Before you move on to that, I have the stat up right now. Zach Wilson got sacked 3 times and rushed 19 times. So that's a pretty bad stat if you're the offensive line or even the offensive coordinator. It forced him, like you said, to run for his life for 38 yards on the 5 carries. Those aren't really carries. Those were 250, 370, 275 pound men sprinting at him, ready to hit his helmet off of him.
Yeah.
So, he's going to run for his life.
Breece Hall just had 4 carries that game, and honestly, I think that was the way to go. Why are we going to put him into the line of fire? Our team was not there to compete. I'm sorry, we have a great roster, but with Zach Wilson, the expectations are just lower. We saw it when we got into a 3rd and 17 situation, and they decided to run the ball with Michael Carter. That shows me exactly who the Jets expect to be this year. It shows me exactly the type of faith that Saleh has in Wilson. Not saying that's undeserved because Wilson was a hot, flaming pile of trash last year. I speak very unbiased when I say that. I was just terrified for this Jets team to the point where I face a similar obstacle of get too attached and have this be a weekly tragedy, or get attached soon and understand that this might be another year of the same old Jets. And that's really disappointing because the two teams that we saw Sunday night were in it. They were competitive. The Pats didn't even look too bad. And the Dolphins might be a legit contender. I know that they kept it close with a team that might not be projected to make the playoffs this year, but this was a competitive game and an easy trap for the Dolphins. I found that this game wasn't in too much of a worry until Cole Strange almost pulled that lateral out of his ass and made that first down at the end. That was one of the craziest plays I've seen. And honestly, there was another crazy play that I wanted to talk about. That field goal block. One where he came into motion from off the sidelines. I thought he was like talking to coach and he was like, oh crap. And he just ran, I saw a stat where he started at 12, 13 miles per hour at the time the ball was snapped. And he was able to get one of the easiest kick blocks I've ever seen.
Is that legal? Like, we gotta look that up. Is that illegal?
I don't think in the inside. I know they can't jump over the center to jump over the line or anything like that. But apparently, that might be something that innovates the game, like we've seen with the QB sneak. So I'll be honest. I was like you at this point. I was a little fried in terms of I'm a little football out after this 10 hours of watching. Maybe close to 9. Yeah. I was starting to feel it. I watched the first half pretty intently, and then by the end, I saw some of the bigger plays, but some of this eluded me. So I feel like the only other point I wanted to touch on was Hill was a little limited. I'm not too worried about that. I think he was going to be the center of this game plan. I feel like we're going to see more of him next week. And even in this situation, he scored a touchdown. He made himself serviceable to this offense. But Raheem Mostert was the engine for it yesterday.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound too one-sided, so we're just going to brush upon the Cowboys. The Cowboys look like a well-oiled machine, like I said earlier. Mm-hmm. Bills being that one complete team, the Cowboys are right behind them at 2. If you say the Bills are 90% at sync, Cowboys in that defense is at 87, 85%. Obviously, there's a few hiccups. Like I said, it's week 2, but they've played phenomenal defense and offense the first 2 weeks. Granted, they went against the first 2 weeks with the New York teams, and granted, they were hit with the injury bug. But you can't take that. It's best available. Next man up. So, the Cowboys took advantage of their situations, came with a game plan, executed it. And I feel like you hear this script a lot, that like NFL teams and players come in with scripts for them to execute and whatever. I feel like they went through their scripts and just executed phenomenally and just did their jobs, and everyone got there out of there. That's my really basis with that.
I would agree. I think Dallas is a Super Bowl contender, and I know before when we were talking about the teams before we started recording, Charlie said that they were the clear favorite to win the division. I know we didn't get into the Eagles-Vikings game, and due to time constraints that we're not going to. We're going to just announce a new schedule. We are going to be releasing the weekly review on Monday, and on Friday we are going to be releasing the weekly preview. We will get to that Giants-Niners game that's going to be happening on Thursday. We're going to be covering the Carolina-New Orleans game as well as the Pittsburgh-Cleveland game there. And we will get into a lot of the action that will be happening in Week 3 as well. Some games like the Patriots and Jets, the Bears and Chiefs, the Cowboys and the Cardinals. Gotta help the Cardinals. But I wanted to thank you guys. I know this is a little bit of a quick outro. We did go a little over on time again. We will get better as we go on. It's just so hard not to talk about football when we're so excited. We had some technical difficulties this round, and we apologize for that. Hopefully I'll be able to make that look nice and pretty and post-edit. I'm also learning how to video edit, so we'll see how that goes. But a lot of fun stuff going on. I think that football feels like it's in full swing now that we have a couple games under our belt. And before we go, I wanted to pass the mic to you one more time, Tev. What are you looking at in these upcoming games, either the primetime games or next week?
Ooh, man, like I said in the chat, do not let Carolina win. Don't let Carolina win. But, yeah, I'm really excited about Carolina. I want to see if Frank Reich I want to see when we're going to say, F it. Let's let Bryce Young just sling it. Forget what he did in the past. Forget everything else. Let's just let him take over. I feel like we're playing really like that restraint rookie ball where we're only giving about 30% of that playbook. We're not seeing too many routes to buy wide receivers just to get them in sync. But I want to see him just say, yo, go do what you do. Show why you're the number one pick. I really want to see that. I'm really excited to see the Saints. The Saints really play well when they go against divisional rivals in general, and play really, really well against us in the past. I want to see what that defense could show, and I want to see what Derek Carr could do because that seems like he bought into that Saints lifestyle, and I want to see what he could do because I feel like last week he didn't do him justice.
I feel like he has another tough defense facing him. I know that Bryce Young doesn't have any shorter of a task, but I think this is going to be, like I said last week, I think the Falcons definitely have down the line and will be there for years to come. I think Carolina and Atlanta have this division on run for this next few years. But the Saints, they're a win-now roster. They're going to be trying to get every game they can this year. They're going to be fighting hard, trying to get to 2-0 after scraping a win barely against the Titans. So I'm really intrigued by that game, as I am Pittsburgh-Cleveland. But we will get to that in our weekly review on Friday. I wanted to thank everyone for tuning in. Charlie, I don't think you're there right now. I'm going to give you the floor real quick.
I'm still here.
Oh, shit.
Still here.
Yeah, man.
I'm still alive.
Okay. Yeah, we had some technical difficulties, so we don't know who survived through them. I apologize, Charlie. I would have clued you in there more at the end.
Hey, shit happens. Just some technical difficulties. It's good.
All right, but this podcast will improve as we do it. It will be a little choppy at first, and I'm completely okay with that. I'm with it through all the trials and tribulations. This is a lot of fun.
Me too, man. Me too. I like preparing and rewatching football games, and
it gives an extra purpose to football. It feels good.
Yeah, man.
We all have to go, so I just wanted to thank everyone one last time, and I'll see you Friday. I'm Matt. This is Tev, and that's Charlie, who you can't see right now, but you'll see next week. So,
peace out, man.
Peace out, everyone.
Have a good one, guys. Say your prayers and eat your vitamins.
Yeah, man. Drink water.